Ariana Grande is releasing a short film. Lady Gaga has revealed the song that she almost didn't put on Mayhem. And Marina is celebrating the 10-year anniversary of her third album, Froot. This is the Pop Pod. I am Pop Sam Cam, and it is Thursday, the 13th of March. Thank you so much for joining me again for the Pop Pod. This is only our third episode, and I am loving doing it so far. If you are loving listening, could you please subscribe to the podcast and rate 5 stars preferably. We'll take 4 stars, just don't give me 1 star. And recommend me to a friend. Let's get started with today's headlines. Ariana Grande has already announced that she's releasing a deluxe edition of her album Eternal Sunshine called Brighter Days Ahead on the 28th of March. And now she has revealed that there will also be a short film to go alongside it. Obviously, Ariana has dipped her toes into the cinematic world with Wicked just this year, but she has announced that she will be self-directing this short film, which will drop with the album. We don't know if this is going to center around old tracks from Eternal Sunshine or it will just cover the new songs, but I'm excited to see what plays out regardless. Haim are back with a new single called Relationships.
I hear a voice in my head and it keeps asking, why am I in this relationship?
They have dropped the single alongside a new video and it sees them right back in the pocket. I am a big fan of this track. It's giving me some vibes of their last album, Women in Music Part 3, which they dropped back in 2020, but it also feels like an update for them. No word yet on whether we're getting an album, but very happy to have this first track back from them. And finally, Lady Gaga has revealed that she almost didn't put How Bad Do You Want Me on her album because she felt like it was too pop. She was speaking to the Los Culturistas podcast and she said this.
I was also not sure I should put that on the record, and Michael was like, you have to, like, your fans are going to love that song.
What was the hesitation around that about?
I don't know. Sometimes when things are really super pop, I get like, I don't know, I get a weird reaction.
Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from?
I don't know. I felt this way about Just Dance. Thank God I didn't listen to myself then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You like my hair, my ripped up jeans. You like the bad girl that got in me. She's on your mind like all the time.
Let's get into what is happening on the charts around the world. There is not much movement on the global or US Spotify charts today, but Jenny is experiencing upticks across the board. Like Jenny is now up to number 9 on the global Spotify charts, and Handlebars with Dua Lipa has risen to number 27. So it's a big week for her album to be in the 4th or 5th day of the release and have songs rising is a very positive sign. In the UK, Lady Gaga and Chappell Roan are fighting it out for next week's number 1. Chappell is currently in the number 1 position with Pink Pony Club, while Lady Gaga is coming for that position with her song Abracadabra off the back of the release of Mayhem. There is currently less than 1,500 copies separating them. Chappell currently in the lead. I will let you know how that situation plays out. But let's move into today's talking point, which is Marina and the Diamonds' Froot. I say Marina and the Diamonds because she still had the diamonds on her name when she released this album back in 2015, 10 years ago. This is my personal favorite Marina record. She was coming off the back of Electra Heart. That album obviously had such a strong character attachment to it. She was playing this Electra Heart figure, and it was a bigger than life pop record. She had so many different producers on it. She was working with everyone from Dr. Luke, sorry for saying that name, to Diplo, and it gave her some of her biggest pop moments, from Prima Donna to How to Be a Heartbreaker. And on Froot, it felt like she totally changed that process. She wanted this record to be produced as if she was part of a band, and it's got that kind of organic feeling to it. She wrote every song by herself. The record was produced by David Costin, and it's a much more intimate affair than what Electra Heart gave us. And I think that's to her benefit. We saw something from Marina on this album that we just hadn't seen that much prior to this. She had obviously become this otherworldly pop figure, and Froot was all about bringing it back in, bringing it more personal. And the critics agreed that it was her best album to date. This album scored her plenty of good reviews, with critics noting that this wasn't an album that just relied on its big singles. I think that was a criticism that many had thrown at Electra Heart, but they didn't have that for this. And I think it's because it's just such a cohesive project. I personally just really love the melancholy that runs through this album. It was led by the lead single and title track Froot, and that had this disco flavor to it, which I guess gave this feeling that the album was going to go in much more of a disco kind of glittery vibe, and it didn't do that at all. Instead, the thread that it took from Froot was the melancholy that runs through that song. Even though it's upbeat, to me, it always had this sadness in it, in terms of the way she sings like living La Dolce Vita with this almost deadpan delivery. And that's the vibe that she brings across this record with some incredible ballads. I always thought that Happy was such a beautiful way to enter into this album with just her voice in its higher register over those keys, and then closing it with a song as kind of profound as Immortal, I thought was incredibly impressive as well. But I don't think, even though this album is more personal and intimate, it's not at the cost of her best kind of pop writing, because that comes into play many points on this record, including I'm a Ruin, which I think is one of the best songs that she's ever written. That hook, I'm a Ruin, I'll ruin you, is just so impressive. The way that she taps into this kind of alternative rock mode almost, but still keeps that pop flair in this kind of boisterous chorus that is also so incredibly sad and self-destructive at the same time. And then Blue is another song that I find has that similar mode, and Forget as well, actually. It's all led by the power in her voice and how she just conducts your emotion with her really impressive vocal range. And I think that even though this album obviously does tone things down a little bit in terms of the theatric, it still keeps the oddities that make her so special as a songwriter. Like even Blue, the way that she kind of flicks in and out of her upper register and delivers this kind of kooky sort of performance, even though this song is very emotionally weighty, I think is what makes Froot so cool as a record for a Marina fan, because she manages to keep that flair while also just making it so sort of relatable and also devastatingly personal at the same time. This album changed the process because she was used to writing over kind of producers' beats and instrumentals, and she decided on this album that she could make the instrumentals herself and take it from there. She said that she started with some really shoddy ones, and because of that, it just opened up her whole songwriting, and I guess opened up a world in which she could explore her own sonic preferences rather than being tied to what producers were giving her. And I think you feel that so heavy on this record. It ended up giving her her highest chart position in the US when it charted at number 8, but I wouldn't call it a commercial success by any kind of means. There wasn't a huge single on this one, unlike other albums. And I think that it did lead to some of her bigger shows, and it led to her kind of expanding her fan base. But commercially, the figures just aren't as good as you would expect from an album coming off the back of Electra Heart, which was meant to be her kind of arrival as a pop star. It only peaked at number 10 in the UK. The previous album, Electra Heart, had peaked at number 1. And Froot, the lead single, actually didn't chart anywhere. But I think, as we've seen so many times, being not tied to the charts can be such a liberating feeling for an artist, because it allows them to do whatever they want to do and not worry about the commercial side of things too much. And Froot, to me, just doesn't sound concerned with the commercial viability of it at all, and it's for the benefit of the album. I actually saw her during the Froot era performing at Coachella, and what I loved about it is she brought this kind of glossy, over-the-top performance style to it, but was still singing these songs that are just so kind of heavy. And I thought that juxtaposition was really, really cool to watch. And Froot in the live arena as a song, I think just absolutely goes off. It's just so sweet and boisterous. And I remember it being one of my favorite live shows of that year. I love Froot. I think that it is such a beautiful pop record, and I'm interested to know what your opinions are on this album, whether it's your favorite by Marina, whether you think she was ever able to make a better album than Froot. She is leading towards a new album that I feel like could be in a similar lane. She's independent now, and it feels like she might be doing or taking most of the writing duties herself. She's released the first single from it called Butterfly, and I'm interested to see how it pans out. But let me know what you think of Froot. Drop me a DM or comment on the video that will go up after this. Let me know how you feel. Let's close out the pod today with a look at what is set to release on Friday. I'm going to do this every Wednesday. I will give you your guide of what you can be looking forward to. It's a pretty thin week in terms of pop releases, certainly with albums. I've got nothing to give you on the album front, but I do have a couple huge singles that we can look out for. Haim have already released Relationships. We've got Selena Gomez and Benny Blanco releasing another song from their new record called I Said I Love You First. That one's called Sunset Boulevard. Then we've got Chappell Roan finally giving us The Giver. She has been teasing this single essentially since last year when she played SNL with it, but she's finally giving us the studio version on Friday, and I expect that it's going to be a pretty big hit from her, given that the last solo song she released was called Good Luck Babe and went on to do huge things for her. The final one I want to tell you about is Jade's FUFN, which stands for Fuck You for Now. That is coming out on Friday as well. I've heard the clips of this, and it's sounding like it's going to be a huge pop moment for her. She has just been building up and up and up over the past few months, giving us some of her best moments yet, including that incredible performance of Angel of My Dreams at the Brit Awards. This is her moment to strike, and I hope this single is huge for her. Let me know which song you're looking forward to the most this week. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Pop Pod. I will be back tomorrow with a closer look at New Music Friday. Until then, see you next time.
'Cause you ain't gotta tell me, it's just in my nature.